Hey, it's Kaero. We've got bans coming May 29th. Here's a list of cards that have a good possibility of being banned in Standard going forward. Number 7, Atraxa Grand Unifier. This card has made huge waves in Standard as the prime reanimator and ramp target to hit. Atraxa is a very strong creature, but the main selling point here is the ability to refill your hand and give you incredible advantage, even if she's killed after she enters the battlefield, finishing off grindy games and striking a death blow to aggro when ramped into early, say like turn 5 or so. Atraxa could see a ban, but the problem with Atraxa really isn't Atraxa herself, but the wide range of ultra high quality reanimator spells in the format. This is a card that costs multiple different colors of mana, and it should be powerful for its casting cost, given its difficulty to cast. This card could see a ban, but I think ultimately, usually, there is plenty of time to get your game plan going before Atraxa hits the field. And again, the problem is not necessarily with Atraxa, it is with all the good reanimator spells. Number 6, Rufine Scheming Seer. Esper Aggro has had a nice run in Standard ever since the printing of Rufine Streets of New Capenna. Having a nice 1 and 2 drop and curving into Rufine on turn 3 allows decks to snowball very quickly with that connive before opponents have had a decent time to react, especially when on the play. Some players have said that if the other cards higher in this list, as we'll see in a minute, get banned, Rufine will have to be banned because it'll just be too dominant. It'll be very good for sure, but I'm not sold that it'll be a bannable offense. Sure, it's a great card, but with high quality, cheap removal in the format with spells like Cut Down, Go for the Throat, Infernal Grasp, and Stoke the Flames, I'm not sure Rufine instantly goes to the top spot post-ban, especially with the advent of the new 5-color Domain ramp deck that's been making big waves right now. But that's another video. Number 5, the Wandering Emperor. The Wandering Emperor is a powerhouse planeswalker, arguably the best currently in Standard in terms of diversity and sheer value. It's removal, it's creature generation, it's creature improvement, and it's at instant speed, which is the killer. If you played this on 4 at sorcery speed, it wouldn't be too much of a problem, but the ability to bring it down, exile an opposing attacking creature, and then make tokens is pretty crazy. The Wandering Emperor is a very good card, but I'm not sure it's oppressive enough to warrant a ban at this time. The reason I say that is that white-based control is not in a super good place right now. Azorius control is definitely not in a good place. Most of the really good decks are hint hint Grixis or Rakdos or Mono Black, which leads us into our number 4 choice. Number 4, Sheoldred the Apocalypse. Introduced in Dominaria United, it did not take very long for Sheoldred to become a mainstay of Mono Black, Rakdos, and Grixis decks. Essentially, any non-aggro deck with black plays and still plays Sheoldred. Since the meta has evolved a bit, though, and people are expecting Sheoldred on turn 4, they often have a plan to deal with her. And ironically, the thing is about Sheoldred, that mostly she's kept in check by other black decks, because black has such good removal right now with 2-mana instant speed spells like Go for the Throat and Infernal Grasp. With the recent printing of Nahiri's Warcrafting in red, Sheoldred can even be dealt with by mono red aggro or burn. Good card? Absolutely. Oppressive and meta warping? I don't think so right now. Number 3, Invoked Despair. Invoked Despair has seen consistent play since Kamigawa Neon Dynasty Standard and has remained a mainstay in every non-aggro black-based deck known to man since then. Invoked Despair, I would argue, was actually meta-warping during Dominaria United Standard when Mono Black was about 35% of the best of 3 meta for a couple weeks, but I think it's slightly less so now as the meta has diversified. Invoked Despair's power comes from that it's always incredible card advantage or tempo advantage. Being able to cast 1 card and destroy 3 of your opponent's permanents or draw 3 cards or any combination therein is very, very strong. Invoked Despair could see a ban, that's why it's so high up on this list. The only reason I think it wouldn't see a ban is that it's pretty easily thwarted by go-wide aggro strategies and especially by tokens. Invoked Despair was clearly meant to be played in mono black decks, but mana being what it is in Standard right now has allowed it to be played outside of its intended use, and it's showing. Odds are decent that this card sees a ban, but I'm not completely sure. Number 2, Reckoner Bankbuster. Reckoner Bankbuster is in just about every mid-range and control deck that there is, in best of 1 and best of 3, and if that's not indicative of a ban, I'm not sure what is. Bankbuster's strength is its ability to generate card advantage when you're not being pressured, becoming a huge blocker when you are under pressure, and then later when you've stabilized the board, it becomes a beater, all for an investment of 2 mana up front. If two players are playing mid-range or control mirrors, a lot of the time, who wins comes down to who has a Bankbuster on the field early and has been drawing cards off of it for turn 3, 4, 5. Bankbuster is a very good card for mid-range or control player in any matchup against everything except the fastest of aggro decks that don't allow you to draw cards with it or to crew it up on time. Looking at you, Mono Red. I think odds are pretty high that Bankbuster sees a ban. Number 1, Fable of the Mirror Breaker. You knew this was coming if you've been playing Standard for any time in the past year. It is so ubiquitous that adding it to any deck with red in it, except for Mono Red Burner aggro, instantly jumps your win rate up significantly. Curving into a Fable turn 3 gives you a body to chump block with if you're under pressure, a good attacker if you're not, that provides ramp in any color via a treasure token, filters cards you don't need, by the way, which has become insanely good now that Reanimator is fashionable and good. That's almost the best part of the card. And draws you more and becomes a win con all its own if you have some good supporting creatures on the field to clone with the reflection. The value generated by this card just wins games all by itself. I have personally won and lost games where one person drew 2 or 3 Fable and the other person stumbled a bit, maybe they took a mulligan. The Fable player won simply by cloning the Goblin Shaman tokens and the reflections multiple times. I would be extremely surprised if Fable does not see a ban on May 29th. Oh, before you go, one more thing to note is, although not guaranteed, if you're concerned about these cards on MTG Arena and they are banned on May 29th, you are very likely to get wildcards back on these bans to use crafting other cards. Paper, however, is going to be a different story. Thank you very much for watching the video, and if you're a subscriber, I will see you next time.